Hello, everybody, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to join SoCast for our monthly webinar. Today, we are going to be focusing on the multiplier effect and discussing how combining radio and digital will help supercharge your revenue in 2026. Now, we've had a few radio-focused revenue webinars over the last few months. This is consistently what we are hearing from our customers is the most important thing that's going to help them move the needle. Helping understand, how do they have better conversations with their partners and with their advertisers to drive home the importance of digital and combining that with radio to make sure that we can, really start increasing and seeing that hockey stick growth on our bottom line and driving revenue through every channel that we have available to sell through. Talking about just the facts, understanding that we know that radio grabs your attention and creates awareness. Digital drives actions, and together they tell a story. Understanding that the most effective campaigns today aren't divided between radio and digital, they combine both. The purpose of this webinar is going to show you why radio plus digital is the combination that your advertisers and your salespeople can't afford to ignore anymore. So looking at, just the facts, one of the things that a lot of my partners came and said were, Ilan, the webinars that you run are fantastic. We love hearing about, potential, but can we get some actionable insights? We want to know what is working today for an actual broadcaster in the same size markets that we're in, that we can go and tell our salespeople, see, we can do this too. And so I spoke with one of our partners who's been in radio for about 30 years now. He's got 11 stations across 2 markets, one small and one medium-sized market. And these are some of the things that we talked about in a very long discussion on as I was working towards creating this webinar. Understanding that radio still reaches pretty much everyone. According to Nielsen, we know that radio reaches over 90% of adults weekly in the US. How do you translate that to your sales rep? Radio gives you scale that digital alone just can't. Adding digital significantly increases purchase intent. Research from Nielsen has showed us time and time again, Pierre Bouvard creates these amazing decks for the radio industry and teaches us that campaigns combining radio with digital deliver significantly higher brand recall and purchase intent than radio-only schedules. Understanding that, people remember you more and are more likely to act when you're hitting them from more than one spot. Audio and digital increases ROI up to 30%. Studies cited by iHeart, who's doing this pretty well, demonstrates that adding digital to radio campaigns lifts overall ROI by 20 to 30% compared to radio alone. So the budgets are out there. And with those budgets, we can drive better results for our advertisers. Small and medium businesses advertising performs better with multi-channel campaigns. Data from multiple BIA services show that small and medium businesses consistently achieve higher conversion rates when using multiple media channels instead of just one, because businesses grow faster when you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. And lastly, digital attribution dramatically improves advertiser retention. Setting internal benchmarks that we've been shared by the RAB show that stations offering digital attribution, whether it's calls, whether it's forms, whether it's clicks, experience materially higher renewal rates versus radio-only advertisers. When clients see leads, they stay. Now, what did this specific broadcaster, he gave me a very meaningful quote, which I wanted to put in here, which just said, after 30 years in radio, that one thing was crystal clear to him, that pure spot schedules do not perform like they used to on their own. The real wins happen when combining on air with digital. Streaming audio, website display, contesting, and basic attribution tracking. This is where average order value climbs and advertisers finally get something measurable. And so we see that radio creates that demand and digital captures it. And based on the metrics that my broadcaster shared with me, his average deal size over the last 5 years increased between 30 to 70% across his different digital sales teams, across his sales teams. Advertisers renewed at a much higher rate. Sales conversations shifted from pricing to performance. This is one of the main conversation pieces. It wasn't just about dollars. It was about what are your needs, Mr. Customer, and how can we help you get there? Station margins stayed healthy, which was between typically a 55 to 70% blended rate. And most importantly, customers stopped seeing them as just radio. They started seeing them as local marketing partners who drove real business outcomes. This is, if anything that you guys are going to take away from this webinar, it's shifting to this consultative approach is what's going to win these bigger deals. Walking in and showing your customers that you know more than they do about this space, which you do. And explain to them that you're not there just to kind of sell a spot and patch a hole, but really understanding the goal behind every campaign that they want to run, and then creating this custom experience for them as, you know, marketing consultants is what's really going to drive the needle significantly. Now, how did this broadcaster help his team? Because we know that one of the biggest roadblocks is motivating the sales team. You know, he said the first conversation that I have in week 1 are these 3 things. Step 1 is reframing radio. You know, radio creates awareness and intent. Fantastic. This is part of the conversation. Step 2 is adding digital, because digital captures demand. And step 3 is closing with proof, which is why he bundles digital and radio for pretty much every single sale. Otherwise, you're only doing half the job. There's no tech jargon. There's no CPM talk. It was just outcomes. And so further assisting the sales team, you know, one of the biggest challenges they had was, you know, custom proposals, sitting and building from scratch, killed margins and killed confidence for salespeople. They were wasting hours, you know, sitting at their computers, trying to figure out how to make this as attractive as possible. The solution that this broadcaster found was creating pre-built bundles by market size, by vertical examples, giving his team a slew of different options, which they could go and learn inside and out, so that when they sat in front of a prospect, they could say, John, you know, what are your goals for this specific campaign? And based on that, have a package that was already proven to be successful for that same vertical. The benefit of doing this was he found that he protected his margins extremely well by understanding, obviously, the cost internally for radio spots, for website traffic, for banner ads, for programmatic inventory, and making sure that each bundle protect margins and increased attributions. And so this essentially eliminated the guesswork from the sales teams and created much more confident margin-protected sales. So I have a few examples of a few sales that this customer ran. 2 of them were in a small market, 2 of them were in a medium-sized market. You know, first package looked at a local boost specifically for a florist. He came in, package was about 15 to 20 spots per week, some streaming audio, geo-targeted displays, a basic landing page or click to call, and monthly performance reports. This was about between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. And this really helped create awareness from the radio side. And then the digital end was capturing the individuals that were ready to buy. This second package here was set up for a real estate agent. He was running this for a 3-month package. I believe it was about $3,000 a month for this one, 20 to 30 spots per week, depending on the week, streaming audio, display, and mobile geo-targeting, simple lead forms. You know, the goal here was to attribute new potential leads coming in for obviously for this specific real estate agent in this small market, and really not showing them, and not just running the ads, but really showing who engaged. And with the attribution assigned based on the digital targeting, he was able to drive about 30 leads a month to this specific real estate agent. And, you know, obviously, as soon as a single one of those converted, which was at about month 2, this agent came back and just decided to run this, you know, as an ongoing campaign entirely. This is a third type of campaign here. This is a package, sorry, that he had created for more of a market dominator in a medium-sized market package. You know, this would be selling $4,000 to $7,000 a month. Auto retailers and dealers, large healthcare, big retail. You know, giving them significant radio presence, streaming audio, the high impact display. And I'm more than happy to share some of the actual sales documentation that were assigned with these specific campaigns, because that was shared with me as well. So if anybody is interested in actually seeing the numbers, I'm happy to share that afterwards. Margins were a little bit tighter on this type of package, just because the digital side was a little bit more. But that being said, the absolute dollars were much higher in the end when running this specific type of campaign. This was actually one of the campaigns that he ran for a real estate agent. And again, happy to share all this information, looking at the fact that in every one of these campaigns, we combined radio and digital. How he positioned this to the agent specifically was, you know, we're not looking for buy my house, but to become a local market authority. He created some creative around inventory challenges, which types of homes were actually selling, and what they were selling for, quick seller tips. And the landing page gave them something that radio alone never could, which was actual lead counts. Customers spent $5,000 over the course of this initial campaign. Internal cost for airtime and digital was about $1,600. His margin was about 68%, made $3,400. In this smaller market, he had about 18 to 30 qualified seller leads over 3 months. This was an actual campaign that we ran. Typical upside, 10 to 25K in commission. So The big win was that the agent, again, became a long-term advertiser after seeing the form fills, call logs, and manage something, and manage the sale. Small market example as well for a florist. It was a 3-month campaign, $1,000 a month. The goal was everyday orders and special occasions. The mix was, about 15 radio ads every week, some streaming audio, a few rotators on the website, and some targeted programmatic targeting women from 30 to 64. Essentially positioned it that, florists live and die on top of mind awareness, and again, where radio drives so much of that awareness, the consideration and the conversion component is where the digital worked so well. Focused on same day delivery, local ownership, and really made it all about being a hyper local store. Client spent about $3,000. His internal cost was, I think it was just over $900. And the margin was about 70%. And here, we can see that this drove about between 250 to 400 incremental orders over 3 months. He didn't have an exact figure to share with me, but with an average ticket of between $45 and $60, the estimated lift was between 11 and 20K. And the huge win was that this customer grew their email list by about 300 people, which was a huge asset, again, for targeting individuals for Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, etc. A third campaign to run through really quickly in a media market was a dentist. Dentists love programmatic. Finding new patients is incredibly important to them, and making sure that their schedules are filled. Every hour that they've got a button to chair in their billing, they're happier. And so the goal for this was new patient acquisition. We combined radio, display, and mobile ads, created a custom new patient special landing page, call tracking, form tracking. The customer spent about $10K. Broadcaster's cost was just shy of $4,000. Margins were 62%. Typical performance that we saw was about 60 to 100 booked appointments over those 6 months, which was about 6 to 10 a month. Double. Apologies. Average first-year value per patient is between $800 to $1,500, which is between $48,000 and $150,000 in potential lifetime revenue for a $10,000 campaign. The dentist immediately renewed this campaign as soon as they saw the appointment attribution coming through. And then lastly, this was one of the largest campaigns that we've seen come through in the last little while, which was a local dealership campaign in a medium-sized market for $30K. Goal was obviously moving inventory and generating test drives. This is what these guys are looking to do constantly, just get people onto the lot. Heavy drive time radio presence was involved, streaming audio, high-impact website takeovers during sales events. They involved their apps as well, sponsored the mobile app with a screen takeover. And really, the creative was tied to seasonal promos, financing offers, and trade-in bonuses, depending on which month throughout the campaign it was running. Customer spent $30,000. Broadcaster's cost was about $13,000 all in. So gross margin was about 57%, came in a little bit lower because of the heavier digital spend. But again, the profit margins speak for themselves. The big, fat, uncomfortable truth that we said and discussed at the long end of my conversation with my partner was that radio alone builds awareness. Digital alone struggles with scale. But together, they create a full funnel system. You get your demand, you get your response attribution, and with the reporting and data, you get the proof to go back to your customers time and time again and show them why advertising with you and spending their dollars with you will drive a better impact than anyone else. This is how you raise your average order values. This is how you protect your margins. This is how you increase renewals and move your customers up the strategic partner ladder. So they don't just see you as, a random marketing vendor who they could easily replace your services tomorrow if someone came in, a couple bucks cheaper. This is how you will engage your clients in more meaningful conversations, understand their goals as a business, and then be able to execute these strategies for them to show how not only can you meet, but exceed their marketing goals and why you deserve to keep their dollars campaign after campaign. The end of the day, we understand, radio is a business. While we try so hard to differentiate ourselves and make sure that, our core customers and our listeners realize that, we care about our community and we care about the businesses inside them succeeding, radio needs to make money too. And as always, SoCast has been here for 13 years to support the radio industry and make digital growth easy. And if your teams are struggling to sell digital and feeling like they don't have the right direction or support or tools, we are here to help. Until the end of March, I'm actually offering SoCast Reach at no charge for the first 6 months. Let me show you how our team can teach your salespeople how to kind of cross that divide from radio salesperson to digital consultant and really start having these meaningful conversations with your advertising partners so that you walk out of every sale with a bigger bottom line, with more to offer your advertisers, and that you can come back time and time again after every campaign that you've run to prove to them why you did better for them than anyone else. Please send me an email, give us a phone call. If you'd like to start up on SoCast Reach or learn more about how we can help you sell digital, we're here for you.